Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. The international break have arrived, and I'm here sitting, talking to you and thinking, Lazio have won the last 6 games in a row. 4 in Serie A, 2 in the Europe League. Alasdair, I mean, who could expect that? I mean, yes, you weren't playing against Juventus, etc., but winning 6 games in a row is not easy, right? Como have beaten Atalanta. Porto is a very good team. They drew against Manchester United. So it wasn't that easy. In particular, playing every 3 days. We go back and see Lazio struggling playing every 3 days. And this team instead have won 6 of the last 6 games, scoring 15 goals in 6 games. If we go back, considering the last 11 games, we won 10 out of 11. And the only game we lost is against Juventus, and we talk about what happened in that game. So this is unbelievable, Alasdair.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's not easy. They've made it look quite easy. It's been incredible. It's the most amazing thing Baroni's done. I mean, there's a lot of amazing stuff Baroni has done, but I think the most amazing thing is the way that he's been able to rotate this team between Europe and Serie A and not just keep getting results, but keep them playing with the same level of intensity, more or less, and the same style. And we're seeing the results. And how often have we in the past, at this start of the season, this first half, let's say, it's always split into these chunks, isn't it? Because there's 3 international breaks in a row. And we always seem to look at them each as a section and say, well, this is a huge part coming up. This is so important, 7 games, whatever. We need X amount of points. And we never really get it. Whereas this time, I think the Juve game fell into this section, didn't it? But other than that, they've won every single game. I can't remember. I don't think it's ever happened where we've had one of these blocks between international breaks that's been this successful.
And I think every year we had one of these blocks where we were here on the podcast and say, hey, the next 6 games are easy. We should be winning each of them. And then, I don't know, against Empoli, you drew. Against Lecce, you lose. There's a strange penalty and things like that. No, this team was able to win all of them.
To be fair, you never say that. It's always me who's saying that and cursing the team completely. But yeah, I've tried to curse, as I said that, I think, before the Genoa game, before the Cagliari game, and so they're even overcoming the McKenzie curse this year, which is, yet another thing Baroni's doing brilliantly.
Yeah, and we have to say that, obviously, we played a lot of games in this slot, and you couldn't expect Lazio to be amazing in every single game. We had some very good performance, like the away at Como game, but we struggled against Cagliari, and last Sunday against Monza. Lazio wasn't playing great football as we see often. But even in that occasion, and this is probably the biggest difference to our past, Lazio was able to get a win even without playing great football, which was something that we struggled to do, especially with Simone Inzaghi. I mean, we never had a plan B. And it's not that Lazio against Monza start playing like Jose Mourinho football. We defend with 11 men and we counterattack when we had the option. Lazio tried to play, but we were tired. Monza was a very offensive-minded team, etc. But we find a way to win. I think this is probably the most important thing about these 6 games won in a row.
Yeah, and probably in particular the last 2 league games against Cagliari and Monza, because they were both difficult, scrappy games against teams at the other end of the table. And like you say, in previous years, we look at games like this and say you got to be winning and then don't. So to do it is great. The plan B thing you bring up is another interesting point, I guess, because you mentioned Inzaghi there, but also with Maurizio Sarri, the problem really was that if when plan A worked, it was generally pretty good. But when it didn't, there was very little he was ever going to change. Sarri was far too wedded to his formation and his style to ever really have another option. Whereas we are already seeing that Baroni is able to mix it up, and probably saw that more than ever on this in this game in Monza, because he actually switched to a proper 4-3-3, which he has used already, but I can't remember him using it from the start before this game. I might be wrong, but
I think he
three
used
actual
it.
centre mids and then three forwards. Yeah.
I think he used it against Udinese in a away game. That was our worst performance, but Rovella didn't start in that game. But Baroni said that we're gonna be very elastic, moving around. Yes, we start with the 4-3-3, but you could see Vecino moving up a little bit more, etc., etc. I was surprised, honestly, to see the 4-3-3, especially thinking that Castrovilli's out. And, if you looked at the bench on Sunday, we didn't have option there, right? Because Castrovilli was out. The only other option was Dele Bashiru playing in midfield. But, it's an experiment that Baroni didn't try very often. The other option is my option. He wasn't even called Patrick, right? So, in fact, when he took off Guendouzi, he put in Gigot. So, I would love to see him switching more, but the true fact is that we don't have that many options to play 4-3-3 consistently, right?
Well, no. I mean, we've got three to play in the middle three. So, yeah, I mean, that is the kind of distant alarm bell. At the moment, it is quite a distant alarm sound, and it's not at the door. But that is obviously a problem area that we've been talking about from the start. It's something that I guess encourages, if not forces, Baroni to play a more attacking style more often than
Yeah.
not. But that's what I mean. You're talking about this elastic football. Absolutely right. It's not just that he's played 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 4-2-4, 4-4-2, all these different variations of the same idea, I guess. But it's that the guys he's selecting are playing in a variety of different positions. On the wing as a number 10 in central midfield, strikers. There's no real reference points necessarily. It must be pretty difficult for the opposition to prepare for this Lazio team, not only because of the rotations that are happening so often, but because you might know Boulaidia's going to play, but you have no idea where he's going to play, because now he's playing on the wing as well. So he's been a striker, a number 10, a winger. Pedro has been such a danger, but is he going to play as a trequartista? Is he going to be on the left, on the right? And the same can be said for Noslin, for all sorts of players. So even Matthias Vecino has played both as a number 10 and as a central midfielder. Yeah. So it's just really interesting, and I think it is making it very difficult for opponent coaches. They have to work things out on the hoof during games to try and understand how best to take on this Lazio team. And also winning games different ways now, where it's not a case of always blowing everyone away. You can score 4, but we'll score 5, because they've managed to, like you said at the start, get tighter wins recently, which is a pretty good sign.
A clean sheet, Alasdair. I don't remember what that is, but it looks like we made it on Sunday. I would say, talking about tactics, that the baseline is we are defending with 4 men. Then in front of them, we have various options. So this is how Baroni is playing. Talking about the 4-man defense, we have to talk about Alessio Romagnoli, because at the beginning of the season, we said Romagnoli is not playing great. He's making mistakes. He looks like he's thinking something else. Maybe the contract issue is having a bad impact on his performance, etc. We have to admit that in the last 3-4 games or so, Romagnoli has been amazing. I think he's the leader that we were needing back there, right? He's playing top level, and we have to talk about Alessio Romagnoli, because 2 years ago he was one of the best signing, right? We were saying we needed someone like that. And the first year with Sarri, he was terrific. The second year, not so good. And this year, he's picking up. I think he's playing well, and maybe he deserved to be called for the national team as well.
Yeah, you're right to bring him up, because when we've brought him up so far, it has generally been in a relatively critical way. But I think you're right. I think he's growing into the season, growing into the style. It's not necessarily a style that's cut out for a. He's in many ways quite an old school centre back, in the sense that he's a big guy. He's not like Mario Gila, who can run 36 kilometers an hour to to get back and cover the space. But he's a good organizer. He's good in the air. He's good with his feet. He's a great player, and I think it's probably taken him a little bit of time to work out how best to manage this defense and be that leader we're looking for. Also, really nice to see, the reason he's at Lazio is really because he's a Laziale and wearing the number 13 because of Alessandro Nesta, and then obviously gets the clean sheet against Nesta's team on Sunday too. So, yeah,
Nesta was very happy about that.
Sorry?
Don't think Nesta was very happy about that.
Well, Nesta probably respects that his legend is still being, there's still a nod to his legacy at Lazio in Romagnoli's shirt number.
Do you think we will ever see Nesta managing Lazio? I mean, I thought he prepared well the match, and in the second half, the changes he made put us in trouble. I thought he had a nice idea, and obviously Monza is not at the same level of Lazio, but we struggled in the second half, and I think we have to give credit to Nesta. I don't think he's ready for a big club yet, but I was concerned because his past as a manager wasn't great so far. But he's struggling now with Monza, but I think he's a decent manager. He's better than I was expecting, honestly.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this while I was walking the dog yesterday. The things that go through my head, because I'd kind of given up on the idea in a way, because, like you say, the start of his coaching career hadn't been particularly promising. Hadn't gone great for him at Frosinone, to be honest. He's got his chance, but he was, there were plenty of skeptics about why he was given this chance. Obviously, Galliani and the Monza crew and the links he's got to them probably helped. And then, the question of whether he could end up as a Lazio coach. Of course he could. I'm not sure he could right now, but he's pretty young still as a coach. He's got time to improve. And I think Baroni is a great example of how he could, because Baroni, was doing very little in Serie A until he was already in his 60s with Verona. And that was considered enough to give him the Lazio job on the back of one good season there. And so, I don't see why not. I mean, he's always going to have that link and that rapport. I think you want to be sure about it, though, because if we look across the city, Vittorio, you can see very clearly what happens if it goes wrong with a club legend, because being a football manager is the most precarious, unstable job you can imagine. And you can't really let emotion get in the way too much of appointments or sackings. And I think that's always a tricky one with these things. So I think if it were to ever happen with Nesta, they would have to be absolutely sure about it, rather than just trying to please the fans in the moment kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't think Lotito is that type of owner who goes that way. So not sure it'll ever happen if Nesta doesn't do anything huge, obviously. We talked about Romagnoli. I want to talk even about Mattia Zaccagni, who is the captain, who is becoming more the leader. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that the last two games Lazio played in Serie A, he decided the game with 2 goals. Yes, he scored a penalty against Cagliari, but he just came in and it wasn't easy to take a penalty after, 3 minutes in the pitch. So, and against Monza, what a goal, right? It looked like Alessandro Del Piero, right?
Yeah, and he had a practice go and hit the post and then gave it another shot and managed to score. And It's funny, isn't it? There's so many wingers over the years where you see them kind of trying to do the same thing over again. And when you're watching on TV, you're thinking, we know what he's going to do. Why is nobody stuffing this guy? And it was kind of like that with Zaccagni yesterday. But you just can't. If players are good enough, their technique's good enough, they're close control, and they're accurate enough to curve the ball in that way through a box. There's not much he can really do to stop it. So it was a brilliant goal. I read in the paper this morning how, between his 4 goals and 2 assists, he's actually contributed to Lazio taking 9 points. So it's not just that he's contributing, but it's that when he's making these contributions, they tend to be at decisive moments. And obviously very clear from the last 2 games against Cagliari and Monza. But probably, Vittorio, just because in the last podcast we were talking about him and I was saying, we can't consider him an irreplaceable player yet because he's not playing well enough. So he's another player listening to Lazio Lounge for a bit of motivation.
Definitely. I was surprised he didn't answer you back after the goal, right?
A T-shirt with it.
Yeah. Again, are you surprised Baroni subbed him in the second half? And this is something that happens very often. I noticed that he played just 5 games for 90 minutes and not the others. So he's been subbed a lot of time. And this is something that you wouldn't expect from your leader, your captain, the player that should be your top talent in the team, right? Should be the one that gives you, can be the difference maker, the one that could really have a huge impact, as you were mentioning. So I don't know. Do you think Baroni is sending a message to the rest of the team saying, hey, you're all at the same level. If I see you're tired, you can be Zaccagni, Messi, or whatever you want, and I will sub you? Or, do you think it was wrong to take him off? I think about Milinkovic Savic, for example. He was a player that Inzaghi and Sarri hardly took off because even when he was playing badly, he could decide a game with one opportunity. So what's your take on this, Alasdair?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've made this point before about how it's not a team of stars anymore. I guess the gap in quality around the squad, the different areas of the squad, isn't as big as it used to be, for sure. But also, everyone's playing with confidence. Realistically, though, I think what it just comes down to is that coaches have to start using their squads differently, because what you find, I mean, Sarri, for example, spent so much of his time complaining about the calendar. And quite rightly, I mean, I do agree with these complaints. I think there's way too much football, and it's ridiculous that they continuously expand these competitions, and it's making what was a very special thing kind of a bit less special if it's just all the time everywhere.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that is how the game looks now. And now that they've introduced the 5 substitutes, and now that pretty much everyone has got a game every 3 or 4 days, coaches are having to find a new way of managing squads. And whether that's by having, much bigger squads, or by rotating them more, or by using all your 5 subs in a special way. I think Baroni's proven himself as someone who's adapted to this new world quite well. That's essentially been the secret to his success so far. Is he's not stuck with an 11 and those are his guys. Everyone has got time, basically, haven't they? I mean, apart from the guys who are frozen out of the list completely, everybody's got pretty good number of minutes, I would have thought. I mean, I've not got the season stats up in front of me right now, but it'd be interesting to see. I feel like everyone's getting good opportunities.
Well, I would say Dele Bashiru is the only one who's the last 4 games played just 10 minutes. But I think the problem there is Lazio playing with a 4-2-3-1, with Dia playing trequartista and Pedro having such a great season. Dele Bashiru, from my point of view, can only play there. So he's now the third choice. He started because if you remember against Venezia, he was playing there. But with Dia having such a season and Pedro, then he's a third option. So he's going to struggle if he don't adapt to a different position, right?
Yeah, just got it up now. And the one I forgot about is Husai, who's not. He's had 9 minutes.
Well, he's not in the list anymore, so
Yeah, but beyond that, yeah, I mean, Castrovilli's had his injury problems, so that's what's restricted him to 120. Gigo's only just getting involved. Obviously, Mandas is only just getting into the team. So, yeah, it's really Deli Bashiru. But even then, 7 appearances in 383 minutes, it's not nothing, especially considering he's down at number, I don't know, down at number 20 something in the list of minutes for the season. So, obviously, we'd like to see more from him. But it's interesting that just above him is Noslin and then Chauna, because I feel like we've seen quite a lot of those guys, but I guess mostly off the bench or rotating in and then being subbed off later in games, because Chauna and Noslin have both got 12 appearances, 423, 421 minutes. So we definitely with Noslin expected to see more of him than that, didn't we?
yeah, I think Noslin with Castrovilli is the worst signing of the season so far. But the problem was that Noslin was never a number 9, and with Dia arriving, he lost space there. On the wingers, we have Zaccagni, Isaacs, and etc. So it's not easy to. And he's got the red card. Let's not forget he should have played in the Europe League, but he got 3 games of suspension, so that didn't help.
Can I do a quick Vittorio quiz?
Go for it.
Who are the top 3 for minutes played this season?
Guendouzi
Yeah.
is number 1, right?
Yeah.
Rovella. Rovella?
No.
Wow.
He's number 6, actually, surprisingly.
Well, Provedel should have been there, but so he should be there as well.
Provedel's number 2.
And the number 3, Zaccagni. Well, he missed a couple of games though.
No, do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, go on.
It's Tati Castellanos. And again, which says an awful lot. I mean, it's kind of amazing that Tati is the, after Guendouzi, the outfield player with the most minutes. He's just the man now, isn't it? Especially if we look back to pre-season and all the doubts everyone had about whether he could be the guy to lead the line.
Well, talking about Castellanos, he missed 2 huge opportunities on Sunday. We could have finished the game earlier if he scored one of those 2. Instead, we had to panic at the last second because Monza had a very dangerous free kick in the last second of the game. I think Tati is a good player, but he needs to improve his finishing. Otherwise, we're going to be struggling in finishing games.
Can he, though? This is my question, because we've seen a lot of him last season, working hard for the team, all the rest of it, and couldn't finish. Now we're seeing him, he is scoring goals. So it's the thing is, I was convinced before that he would play better if he got more confidence and got more game time. And he's got both of those things now, and he still misses chances. So I'm not sure that he's going to, suddenly, I mean, he's already improved a lot. But what I mean is I don't think he's going to suddenly change into a player who's going to nail those every time, who's going to be someone you can trust every time.
You know what I was thinking? He wants to be too cute. I mean, he had 2 huge opportunities. You don't have to, try to put the ball where a nice finishing and things like that. Just put the ball far away from the goalkeeper instead of, trying to put the ball under the legs of the goalkeeper or things like that. This is the 3rd opportunity he missed in front of the goalkeeper. Let's not forget even Torino Lazio. He had a huge opportunity and missed it. I think he's maybe has overconfidence now. He don't want only to score. He wants to do a nice goal, the one that people will say, wow, this is the goal of the week. No, please. When you are 4-0, you can do whatever you want, Rabona, etc., etc. But when we are 1-0 away and we are struggling and you have one opportunity, you have to take it.
Yeah, I mean, he's been called into the Argentina squad as well, which is a huge symbol of his improvement. You have to say, considering the options Argentina have got. And I guess across the international break, we've seen that a little bit because Tavares is now into the Portugal squad. And Vittorio Nicolo Rovella, he's done it. He's done it.
Well,
And
I
now
mean,
Ricci's injured. So is he going to play a game for Italy, do you think?
well, I said it often. He's by far the best Italian midfielder we have at the moment. So it was ridiculous that Spalletti didn't call him, and I'm still astonished that Zaccagni is not there. But
Yeah.
I think it's fine for Zaccagni to not be there. I'm concerned about Rovella because he's one of our key players, and he tend to get injured. So I would have preferred to see him resting at Formello rather than playing for the national team. I'm a little bit scared. We have 11 players away, Alessio. 11. And one of these 11 is Isai, which is funny enough, right? Out of the Lazio squad, but captain and call from the Albania national team, which I think is nice for him. At least he plays. But 11, it's in a way a positive sign because it tells you that these players are considered good players, not only from us, but from even their manager, international manager. But it's concerning. You don't know when they're coming back. You don't know how they're coming back. And what is it? Lazio Bologna the next game. So it's not going to be easy preparing the next game for Baroni with 11 players away.
Yeah, but it's a good sign of progress, isn't it? And it's funny because we regarded this squad at the start of the season as having dropped in quality a reasonable amount. And now you look at it and you've got, guys in there who are in the national teams for Italy, Portugal, Argentina, France with Guendouzi, and they're all getting recognition for the way they're playing. And I mean, Pedro's going to get back in the Spain squad at this rate. Pedro and Yamal, he could beat Yamal's dad probably, but but no, it's good. I think it is good to see players get recognition at international level because it's not always been particularly interesting following Lazio during an international break because there's been 4 players or something.
And I agree with you, but for example, Guendouzi, that we know he's not 100% fit. He's going with the national team, and I think he's playing, and he wants to play. That's the problem. And then he come back maybe with another injury, etc. We don't have option there. Let's not forget about that. I mean, if, for example, Chauna goes to the national team, he has been called for the France under-21 and get injured. Yes, it's a problem, but we have plenty of option there. If Rovella and Guendouzi get a cold, then guys, it's a problem. It's a big problem. So
is Vecino with Uruguay?
No, he withdrew. He said he's not going back to the national team anymore.
Yeah. Well, so that's something I was going to say. If all 3 of our midfielders are away, it'd be kind of terrifying. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I think there's something that's going back to this new world of football where the club game is so congested with fixtures and so on. I think that's another thing we're seeing happen more and more now is these kind of tensions between international and club football and a few arguments breaking out between, I saw Pep Guardiola was doing it recently, and clubs and national team managers not being happy with each other for whether they're using players or whether they're not, and where the lines are drawn there. It's a strange one.
I mean, it makes sense, Alison, right? The national team manager is fighting for his job. They need to qualify for the World Cup, etc., etc. So they want the best player available. At the same time, the club manager say, hey, he's half injured. We are playing against Milan next week. He's staying here. He's not fit, right? And the national team manager said, no, he played Sunday. Come on. And then you see those weird things like, he played on Sunday, and then 2 hours later, he's not able to be called for the national team, which or the other way around with AC Milan. Now, I don't remember the player who was injured for Milan, but he responded to the national team call. So that's funny. But this is modern football. It's crazy. Let's not forget that, luckily enough, Lazio hasn't been called, but there's the Club World Cup in June, right? So it's gonna be a nightmare. It's gonna be a nightmare for a lot of clubs.
Yeah, which in case people haven't missed this is now 32 teams. It's like the old World Cup before
Yeah,
that became
yeah,
even bigger. Um, so yeah, it's unreal, isn't it?
yeah. But Alison, we have to talk about the table because we were talking about before going live. Well, Lazio is virtually second, but for goal difference, we are fifth. We have Inter, Atalanta, Fiorentina, and Lazio all at the same with the same points, and Napoli 1 point ahead of us, and Juventus 1 point below us. So this table is crazy. I don't remember something like that in the past. Uh, I said I don't think this is a very good sign for Lazio, but you were very positive. So I would say go ahead and tell me why you're happy about this situation.
Well, I'm happy, Vittorio, because we're 1 point off the top of Serie A after 12 games, which is absolutely insane. And look, I think so. First of all, you just focus if you focus on yourself and don't worry about the fact that other teams are doing well too. That's it's a great position to be in. I understand what you mean. It would be better if Fiorentina and Atalanta, for example, weren't also up there. But it kind of depends what our ambitions for the season realistically are. Because I keep saying we can't expect this to continue forever, and we can't go crazy when we lose a match. But what is encouraging is that there's a bit of a gap between the top six and everyone else now. And okay, Milan still have a game in hand to come where they could close that gap a little bit. But if Lazio can be fighting in a top six group, I think that would be a successful season. And I know there will be fans who won't be happy to hear that because people will see the way that we're playing and see where we are on the table, and they'll be saying Scudetto bid or Champions League or whatever. But look, we have to stay realistic and remember where we were at the start of this season, and a top six finish would be a success. We can't, even if we're third until the end and drop down, still finishing top six is good considering Baroni's first season, all the changes that we've had, and the expectations being so low. Now, of course, you can adapt your expectations as the season goes on, but we have to remember we're at the start of November here. All right, we're not that far in. So we can have this conversation again, maybe in February, March. And if we're still in this situation, we can adapt to the expectations and say, okay, now the standards are higher. The expectations are higher because we know this team is capable of this. But I think for now, we just have to kind of enjoy it and not put too much pressure on ourselves to still be in this kind of 1 point off top scenario by the end of the season.
Well, it's half November. I already wrote my letter to Santa Claus, so I'm already looking forward. But I agree with Marco Baroni what he said. I thought it's the perfect thing Lazio have to do, and it looks to me, listening to what our players said, that they bought into this mentality. We don't have to see the table. It's useless to see the table now. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't give you point, etc. We have to just think to the next game, right? Now I think it's Bologna, Lazio, and then we have Ludogorets in the Europe League. We have to focus on the next game. And then, to the next one again. We have a terrible December. And it's not because I've been bad and Santa Claus is not going to give me the present I wanted. But we have Napoli twice, one in Coppa Italia and one in Serie A, Atalanta and Inter. And I think, and Ajax in the middle, I think. So we're going to have 5 games in a row, something like that. Very, very difficult and very, very challenging. So, we can celebrate now. And then if we lose those 5 games in December, we could be like 10th or 8th in the table. So everything is gone. So we have to focus on the next game and maybe try to be more competitive in the big games, because so far we've been definitely unlucky, because against Juventus and Fiorentina, we've been robbed. But against AC Milan, that's a game that is hunting us. I think every time I think about the table and think, gosh, we didn't beat Milan at home and we should have. So I think the next step is trying to be more competitive, to win some big games, but without watching the table, because I think is going to only burn our energy focusing on the table and thinking, okay, now we need 3 points there, then 6 points there. Well, no, let's focus on the next game, because it's not going to change nothing watching the table every single day.
Yeah, true. I think that gets harder as the season goes on, though. That
Obviously, I
chat.
mean, in April you can start watching the table because it would make sense, but now it's, even the Europe League table is useless at the moment. Yeah, we're top, we're number one, but we have Ludogorets, Ajax, etc. If we lose those games, we could be easy going down, 10th, 11th maybe. So let's not watch it. Yes, it's nice to be there, but the players have to focus on the next game.
I do think the one thing though is that it's pretty clear that the head-to-head games are going to be quite important this year. So even though we don't have to stare at the table and agonize over the points gaps and the goal difference and all this, I do think that we need to respect the fact that when we're playing Atalanta, when we're playing Roma, Fiorentina, whatever it is, that these games do have an extra importance just because of this rule change a couple of years ago about that being the tiebreaker. So that is something to think about, and I think it will be the big test, because it's not something we've really seen in Serie A, at least from this team yet, is their ability to win the big games.
And we have to say that Atalanta and Fiorentina, for example, are playing really, really well. I mean, I would have expected Atalanta to be top 4 at this point in the season. Maybe not Fiorentina. Atalanta can be very dangerous. I mean, if we're thinking about finishing the top 4, this means that Milan or Juventus, or both of them, have to be out of the top 4. That one between Atalanta and Fiorentina as well. So it's not easy. It's very, very difficult to see that happen. So, yeah, now we are 2nd or 5th, as you want, but we have to think about playing. And the biggest concern, you were talking about turnovers, changing all the players. We don't have that depth like Atalanta, Fiorentina, etc. This is the most concerning thing. I'm seeing players get tired. Dia is not playing as well as the beginning of the season. And he's been called with the national team as well. So we have to be happy of what we did so far, but be very concerned that things can change. Too pessimistic.
Yeah, and not to panic when that happens. I remember when we were doing the season preview, I was thinking the way this season I expected to go was that it might be quite difficult in this period up till Christmas and then get a bit better. It might end up being the other way around. It's been great. It goes great up until Christmas and then falls apart a bit. But I think we need to not lose our heads if it does. We can't set our expectations of winning 6 games in a row, and never losing. And we just have to appreciate how well it's been going so far. And it is highlighting issues for January. And you would hope that for once the club can realize the gaping problem in front of them. I mean, what will probably happen is the ghost of Iglitare will make the club sign another winger, which is the one thing we don't need. But
that's the biggest point, Alasdair, because we know that Milan is struggling. They're going to sign a couple of players in January. Probably Fiorentina, etc. They will. The only club who won't will be Lazio. And so the gap, instead of shortening, will increase, right? I think you don't need a genius to see that Lazio's missing a midfielder. So we need someone in January. We don't believe we're going to sign it, right? So that's the biggest concern, for me at least.
Yeah. I mean, we can postpone this conversation until January probably, but yeah, I mean, it's seemed obvious for quite a long time already, and it's not going to have changed by then, is it? That issue.
Well, I provide you an argument you can talk with your dog when you're walking him out tomorrow, right? The winter Lazio transfer market. See what he thinks about it.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have strong thoughts actually. So I'll report back on that for the next podcast and let you know.
Good. I'm looking forward for that. Alasdair, I know you're celebrating your Ross County with that shirt. Ross County with your shirt. Great performance on Sunday again. I think we finished. Do you have something else to talk about except Ross County losing again?
Hey, they were on a 3-match unbeaten run before that, so you got to be nice. No, I think that's all. And let's just keep an eye on our boys over the international break and cross our fingers that nobody gets hurt. And and enjoy it. Enjoy looking at the league table throughout the international break.
Yeah, that's not going to change this week, so you can watch it for the moment. But yeah, we have to cross. It's incredible. We have to cross finger, hoping that no one's get injured. But again, guys, thanks for your support. Thanks for watching and listening. I know there are a lot of Laziali who wants to come to Rome and watch the game. I made a video about that, how to buy tickets for Lazio game. So if you need more information, go and check that video. And if you have other questions, just get in touch. I'll try to answer as soon as possible. Apart from that, take care. Have a nice weekend. Lazio's not playing, so you don't have to wake up early or be concerned about the next game. We are going back. Stadio Olimpico, we are playing home again, right, Alasdair, against Bologna?
Yep, Bologna.
Very important game. Bologna just defeated the other side of Rome, easy peasy. So it's not going to be an easy game, but we're going to be back after Lazio Bologna. For now, take care, rate and review the podcast, and if you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Take care, guys.
Cheers.